Hello and welcome to ThePrint. This is Akanksha Mishra and you're watching Scientifix, where I will be taking you through this week's top science news from across the globe. First off, you might have heard of snake venom being used as a recreational drug in some countries. But have you heard of python blood being used for weight loss? A new study by the University of Colorado in the US has found certain pharmaceutical properties in an unlikely source, pythons. The blood of these reptiles contains an appetite suppressing compound called paratyramine O sulfate, PTOS, which helps these pythons eat enormous meals in a go and remain metabolically healthy. Basically, this compound is produced in high quantity right after pythons feed, and it helps fasten their metabolism while also helping them go for months without getting hungry again. Experiments on mice showed that PTOS acts on the hypothalamus in the brain, and it reduces weight without side effects like nausea or muscle loss, which are also seen in GLP-1 drugs such as Ozempic. The compound is produced by the gut bacteria in humans too, but at very low levels, and it has been overlooked. Scientists say that it could be a new therapy for obesity. Our next story is about a mind-blowing medical case in Northwestern University where a 33-year-old man was kept alive for 48 hours without his lungs. The case, described in a study in Cell Press Journal, involved a patient who was suffering from severe lung infection and needed a double lung transplant. But since the doctors could not perform the transplant surgery immediately, they had to first remove his lungs and then keep him alive on an artificial lung system for 2 days before they could perform the surgery. This study is significant for two main reasons. Firstly, the man was suffering from acute respiratory distress syndrome, which essentially means that his lungs were inflamed, filled with fluid, and was spreading infection fast. In such cases, the patient's condition is almost always fatal, and doctors don't even attempt a transplant because the body is in such a weak condition that it won't be able to handle one. But the scientists in Northwestern University did not give up, instead taking the bold step to remove the organs immediately and keeping the man alive using an artificial lung machine connected outside the body. This helped reduce the inflammation from the infected lungs and gave the body time to recover and stabilize so that it could handle a transplant. The patient has now fully recovered, and this study has opened a new pathway for handling ARDS in a non-fatal way. Next up, a study from Trinity College Dublin talks about how repeated head injuries can lead to brain damage, especially in combat soldiers and athletes, by identifying one particular phenomenon, the breaking of the blood-brain barrier. Sounds gory? Well, it is. Essentially, the study described how the BBB is a security gate for the brain, since it protects the brain from harmful toxins and inflammatory cells but allows nutrients from the blood to get in. By using MRI scans, the scientists showed that those athletes and soldiers that received repeated brain injuries had a leaky BBB, meaning that the brain was now exposed to all harmful substances that could cause chronic brain damage, like even dementia. Also, for the first time ever, the researchers showed that in some retired athletes with a history of head injuries, this gate remained leaky years after they have left the field. Athletes with greater blood-brain barrier leakage showed poorer memory and cognitive function. The findings suggest that MRI scans could help identify at-risk players early and open the door to treatments that are aimed at repairing the barrier with implications for sports safety regulations. And finally, before agriculture, before pottery, or even full civilizations, hunter-gatherers in the Levant were fashioning beads, pendants, and sculptures using clay. In a study published in Science Advances journal, archaeologists from Jerusalem showed the oldest known evidence of deliberate use of clay by unearthing over 100 different clay ornaments dating back to 15,000 years. In fact, these beads and discs were even coated with red ochre color, which is the oldest known evidence of the use of this color by humans. The study's authors argued how this is not just a simple archaeological find, but rather it changes how we view symbolism, traditions, and the evolution of society in the world. The sheer number of ornaments that were found by the archaeologists indicates that this wasn't an experiment, but it was an actual common practice that the Natufian community, one of the world's oldest hunter gatherer communities from the Levant region, engaged in. The fingerprints that were found in this ancient clay indicated that it wasn't just adults but children that engaged in this activity too. Moreover, the archaeologists noticed how these beads were often inspired in shape to look like seeds of barley, wheat, and other plants that could have been found in the area at the time. Beyond skill and the use of resources, what this discovery does is point to the early cognitive and social development of humans. That's all we have for you today. Thank you for tuning into The Print.